I'm Citizen Dylan.
And I'm Citizen Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where the camera angle changes every 2 seconds. It's definitely an exaggeration of some sort. It wasn't 2 seconds. It's like 4 or 5.
There were some scenes, namely that one where...
That thing happened.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Sure.
Okay. This week we watched The Reign of Terror.
This is interesting.
It was interesting. 2 of the episodes were animated because they were missing. So they were reanimated by, who was it? 5 something or the other?
Planet 55.
Yes, and the animation
and
style was very, very interesting.
Tetramation. What was it called?
What? Oh yeah, Thetamation.
Thetamation.
Yeah, it's their own signature style of animation. That looked very strange.
Thetamation.
But we'll just dive right into the summary like we usually do and talk about the animation during/after that
when we get there.
And let me just start out by saying I was pretty lost during this serial because it was really complicated. Well, yeah, it was complicated, and there were a lot of different goals throughout the serial. Like, I guess it was just really fast paced. Would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of lost, and that's why I kind of didn't like this serial. Yeah. But did you?
Yes. Hindsight was pretty good, actually. I mean, it wasn't as good as the Censorites.
Yeah, definitely not.
Definitely not. Wow, okay.
well, I mean, Censorites was good. Oh, yeah. There were a few scenes that I really liked, though, despite not liking the serial as a whole. Which we'll get into, but let's just start by explaining kind of what happened.
Right, so it started with the Doctor completely breaking character still from the Lost serial and deciding he's going to kick Ian and Barbara off of the TARDIS.
At their next stop, which I guess they were aiming for 63,
They were
London.
aiming for England 63, and the Doctor missed, of course. I mean, what else did you expect?
By 200 miles and 200 years. So they wind up in French Revolution, France.
Yep. I mean, they don't know that yet, but Ian convinces the Doctor to come out with them so they can go get a drink from a bar and part on friendlier terms. So they go out, and then they kind of realize, wait a minute, this isn't England. And then they realize, oh shoot, this is the French Revolution.
It turns out to be the Doctor's favorite period in history, so they're like, darn, we're never gonna leave. Yeah.
That hat. Okay, so they end up at this house, and there's these 2 guys inside, Dargenson and Rouvray. And they are there.
And the end, they're there.
No,
they're part of the nobility
yeah.
that's currently being hunted by
Guillotine.
Robespierre and friends.
Robespierre and co.
Yeah. So then, the stuff.
So
some soldiers come to the house and they're like, "Yo."
Yeah, because they're looking for Dargenson and Rouvray.
Yeah.
But they find so one of them gives up, and I don't know if it was Rouvray or Dargenson, but he's like, "Whatever, I'm going out." And he goes out.
And he's like, "Put down your weapons. I'm a lord."
Yeah, and then they did.
Yeah, they did.
And the commanding soldier's like, "What are you guys doing? Shoot him." And they did.
2 deaths.
Yeah. Rouvray came out, and so they killed both of them. And then they found Ian, Barbara, and Susan, because they were downstairs, and the Doctor was upstairs and had been knocked out by Dargenson and Rouvray. So he's like upstairs, unconscious.
Yeah.
So they capture Barbara, Ian, and Susan,
and so begins this
everything.
Everything.
everything
this
just
entire
goes
serial
wrong from this point.
consists basically of the four just getting into terrible situations, getting out of terrible situations, and then getting back into more terrible situations until they finally get back to the TARDIS and leave. It's true, you know it's true.
So the soldiers decide to light the house on fire. And they did. I mean, and the doctor's in there, though, so... There's a fire, and he's like, let me out. I'm still in here.
And,
this kid
Susan...
saves him.
Yeah. Susan, Barbara, and Ian are taken to the conciergerie prison. Is that, like, a famous prison? I've never heard of it until now.
I mean, it's where Robespierre gets thrown in prison at the end.
Okay.
Spoilers for history. Guess it's not spoilers if it actually happened. Was he actually thrown in the conciergerie prison?
I don't know. Let's look that up.
Robespierre. Oh, well, while this is loading, so the kid saves the doctor, and his name's Jean-Pierre, and the doctor's like, thanks. So he decides he's going to head... He finds out that they went to the city, so he decides to head off to the city. And that's like the end of episode 1. Yeah,
and the first in a long string of things that confused me in this serial is I felt like Ian, Barbara, and Susan didn't really think it was a big deal that the doctor was left behind. Like, they were
like, oh,
they
no,
mentioned it.
The doctor probably got killed.
And then after that, they were kind of just like, eh. I mean, I know they had a lot on their plate being in jail and, like, they were going to get
Susan should have cared more.
Yeah, like...
The grandfather just got killed.
Yeah, like that scene in the jail where Susan's like, oh god, rats, but... but when the doctor dies, assumedly, he's just like, eh.
Right, so...
History lesson. Robespierre.
I don't... Yeah... Arrested. Danton.
Well, I read on the Doctor Who wiki that, like, the date of his execution and all in the serial were actually true to life.
Right.
Which was nice. They actually, put that sort of thought into it. Doesn't really say anything about the prison and stuff.
He was moved to a table in the room of the Committee of Public Safety where he awaited execution.
Huh. Well, yeah, anyway, the prison they were thrown into was called the Conciergerie.
So, so Barbara and Susan are separated from Ian. Ian's put in one cell, and Barbara and Susan are put in a different cell. So... Barbara and Susan decide they're going to try to dig their way out. So they start doing that. And Ian is in the cell with this guy who's dying, who tells Ian he needs to get a message to someone named James Sterling. And the message is, get back to England. You have information they need, or something like that.
And this is the point where I started getting pretty confused for the rest of the serial. So I guess it's just going to be you kind of explaining it from here on out. So Barbara and Susan are then taken... They're going to be taken to the guillotine.
Right. And...
I guess that's the point where I started...
Ian sees them going and is like, oh, darn. They're going to die. And then we cut back to the doctor walking along the road, and he finds, like, a chain gang.
Yeah.
Digging...
For precious metals.
I don't know what they were doing. But the doctor talks to the head guy, and they seem to be getting along pretty well. But then the doctor's like, well, maybe you should help them work. And then the guy goes, man, you should, like, well, you can help them then. And he gives the doctor a pickaxe, and now the doctor's on the chain gang. That's the end of episode 2.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So episode 3 started with the doctor's daring escape. Or did they come in the middle of episode 3?
I don't even know. But the way the doctor escapes is pretty dumb.
Well, so Barbara and Susan are going to the guillotine, and then they get rescued by these guys. Like counter-revolutionaries.
Yes, they get rescued.
Leon and his buddies. Leon.
No, that wasn't Leon yet, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, Leon wasn't involved in the rescuing, but...
Yeah. It was, It
was Jean and Jules.
Yeah.
So
And
they
the fact
capture
that their
Barbara
names
too.
are so similar and their looks are so similar was also kind of what threw me off. Yeah.
So they take him to this safe house, and Susan gets ill, which just is never explained how or why that happens.
Well, you can, if you've been through like a long string of traumatic things, you can just, I mean, your body can just, you know, fail.
Right.
But like that really hasn't happened throughout this entire serial and stuff. So I don't see why it would happen now, unless the added trauma of her grandpa dying, supposedly, and almost getting killed herself. You know,
So Ian escapes from prison
right?
with a really stupid way as well. Like the
Oh
jailer is
yeah,
drunk and leaves the key in the door, and Ian like
just reaches out and
takes
takes
the
it.
key for his door and then puts the keys back. So the jailer comes back, takes the keys, and then Ian opens the door and escapes.
Mm-hmm.
And later we find out that that was all arranged.
Not yet. Not yet.
Then the doctor also escapes. A lot of escapes in this
Oh,
episode.
and then comes that scene where the doctor. It's just the doctor walking down this like.
No, wait, we didn't explain the doctor's escape.
Oh right.
Gotta explain the doctor's dumb escape
Okay.
method.
Okay.
He's like talking to this other guy, and they find out that the chain gang leader is like obsessed with money. So the doctor is like, look, it's an eclipse. And the guy walks over, and he's looking at the eclipse, and the doctor steals some coins from him. Then when the guy goes back, the doctor puts the coins in the ground and pretends he has dug them up. So the leader gets really excited and comes over and is like, let me dig. And he takes the pick and starts digging. And then the doctor just picks up a shovel and hits the guy over the head.
That was like a 10-second, wind up for that. So I was like, Doctor, don't do it.
He didn't die.
Yeah, he didn't kill him. They added that snoring sound effect when he was lying on the ground. I guess just to reassure the viewer that the doctor didn't just murder him. But then came that amazing scene where it's about 30 seconds long, and it's just the doctor walking down this country road to this electronic,
Jingle.
like early 60s electronic music.
I should see if I can find it and just put it in here.
Should we just play it right now?
No.
No?
I'll find it and put it in later. If we
Alright.
play it, it's going to be this weird, terrible quality because it'll come out the speakers and into the microphones.
That's true.
And that'll be really annoying for everyone listening. So that happens, and then that's the end of episode 3. No, because first the doctor has to go and get that really elaborate costume.
And there's some more stuff with
Right.
Barbara and Ian.
Like, Jean and Jules will promise to go out and look for Ian.
Yeah, and
Because they all still assume the doctor's dead. And then Leon shows up. And he's a pretty sketch guy.
yeah,
So then the doctor gets to this clothing store. And he sees this, like, elaborate costume. And he tells the guy he has no money. But he decides to make an exchange with the doctor.
the doctor exchanges his ring and
His coat.
coat for basically, I guess it's a
The sash, the seal for the regional officer.
yeah, and
This
this
really elaborate hat
Yeah.
that has feathers on it.
yeah, and that turns out to be a major plot point later.
Yeah, so that's the end of episode 3. And the doctor doesn't take that costume off till the end of the series. So then the doctor goes to the jail.
Well, there's that part where Barbara's talking to Leon, and
Right.
that's when it's sort of implied that Leon is
A traitor.
yeah.
Right.
So then comes the animation, and
The animation.
yes, the
The
animation,
animation. Tetramation. Whatever.
Thetamation, and to describe the animation shortly, it's black and white like the rest of the serial. Which
should have done it in color.
Do you really think so? Because at first I was like, they
No.
should have done it in color, but then I was like, nah.
It
It
made
sort
more
of just,
sense to do it black and white,
Yeah.
but it would have been funny if they did it in color.
But basically, it looked almost 3D-ish, I guess,
Yeah,
in some.
but it was like
Scenes.
2D, hand drawn, looks
And
like 3D.
It relied heavily on like shading and different shades of grays to.
It was easier to see than all the rest of the episodes.
Yeah, it was because just because of the low quality we're watching the other episodes in. But basically, throughout the 2 episodes that were animation, there were these certain like stock. Like each scene wasn't drawn individually. It was like the background with certain stock camera angles of the characters just imposed over it, if you know what I mean.
I didn't notice that.
Because remember that one... It was just that one face of the Doctor for a lot of different scenes. It was mostly the Doctor.
Right.
And really, I guess I'd say I didn't like the animation. It was okay, but one of the major things I had a problem with was a lot of the scenes... Like, it just varied in quality so much. Yes, you're adjusting your thing. It just varied in quality so much from scene to scene. Like, I felt like they just didn't care about certain scenes, and they were like, okay, it's lower quality than the other parts, but we'll just leave it like that.
I didn't feel that way. I felt it was all just the same.
I don't know.
Very elaborate camera angles.
Yeah.
They made liberal use of camera angle changes that they probably weren't able to do when it was live action.
And it turned out to be pretty annoying, actually, because the camera would just change so often. Just so
Every
often.
time someone said a line, it would switch to their face and it was like, no, slow down.
And sometimes even in like a 5-second period of silence, there would just be like 3 camera angle changes, like a close-up of a character's eyes, and then their face, and then back to another character. And I was just like, why?
I feel like they just had a lot of fun with it. They're like, yeah, let's do this. So, anyway, in that episode, the Doctor goes to the jail. He finds out that Ian, Barbara, and Susan aren't there anymore. And somehow the Doctor's, like, forged papers saying he's the regional officer. So everyone treats him with respect, and he has
Yeah, the
lots
Doctor
of
just starts
power.
deceiving people at this point.
And then the Doctor, this guy, says his name is Lemaitre, takes him to see Robespierre. The Doctor and Robespierre become buddies.
Yeah, also I just wanted to say, because of the characters' designs in the animation weren't... I mean, obviously they were trying to emulate the live action with the animation, but
Right.
they kind of did take some liberties with the character designs, and I think that confused me even more, because the characters already did have similar designs, and when they introduced the animation, I was kind of just like, what? Who is who?
We could have been watching the reconstruction where we just saw still images, which probably would have been way more confusing. Because you wouldn't know who was talking, because they all sound
Yeah,
the same, too.
that is true. But at the same time, I feel like the reconstruction would have had those helpful captions, like Ian moves over to examine the prints.
Tagana, master of deception.
The Doctor was a master of deception in this serial. He pretends to be a regional officer, and when he gets found out,
Yeah.
he argues his way out of it, and everyone believes him.
No, well, so the clothier goes to Lemaitre and is like, I have proof of a traitor, and shows him the Doctor's ring, and you all assume that this is going to become some major plot point and they're going to throw the Doctor in jail, but Lemaitre just doesn't care. You find out later why, but he doesn't care, and that's confusing for the next 2 episodes. But
Or you just think, hey, whatever, anarchy, he's just going with it.
so Jules and John come
John.
back to the house and find like Ian has broken in and knock him out. And then Bob was like, oh yay, it's Ian. They're all happily reunited. They
Except
still don't-
Susan's still dying.
Susan's still sick. So Ian needs to find James Sterling. So Jules and John say they can help.
Because they've been looking for him too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because James Sterling was, I guess, an Englishman who came over to France as a spy for stuff.
Right, so they decide to send Barbara and Susan to the physician, because the physician won't come to the house.
Uh-huh.
So they go to the physician.
And it's a trap.
It's a trap. And they get thrown in jail. Again.
And then Ian goes
To
with
meet
Leon.
Because Leon apparently knows who might be James Sterling. But that's also
a trap. And that episode ends with Ian at gunpoint and Barbara and Susan back in jail.
And the doctor at the jail, stuck there, because Lemaitre won't let him leave. And then episode 5, things
Second episode of the animation.
Starts getting way quicker paced. If you thought it was fast paced, it gets quicker.
Yeah, both the storyline and the camera angles.
Okay, so
in the most intricate and fight scene in the entire series so far.
Was it Jules? It was Jules that showed up to save
one
Ian?
of them. But,
Jules or Jean?
But yeah, there were during the gunfight scene. It was basically, it was who did
It
you
was
say?
Jules.
Jules and basically just Jules because Ian was handcuffed.
Right.
Versus Leon and a bunch of other guys with guns.
Right.
And
so
that was very, very.
Was Jules against like 3 people, right? Was Leon and 2 soldiers? So Jules shows up and shoots one of the soldiers, and then throws his gun at the other one.
You think, okay, just walks up, shoots one of them, throws the gun, right? But there were actually like 17 camera angle changes during that, so you're just like, what? What's going on? And then the fact that he throws his gun just cracked us up.
What?
I wonder if he did that in the actual episode.
Pretty sure he did.
Probably. I don't think they would take that many liberties, but at the same time, it would be hilarious if they were just like, it would be cool if he threw his gun.
And then he picks up the soldier's gun, shoots the other soldier, and then shoots Leon.
And then doesn't he shoot Ian out of the handcuffs?
What? What?
Or was that... Maybe it was just me thinking, hey, it would be even more over the top if he shot Ian out of the handcuffs. And at that point, I was just like, I don't really care what's happening anymore, because I was already confused as heck.
So Leon's the traitor they've been looking for. So they kill him. The death count is at like 38 now.
Yeah. No, 39 actually.
Oh yeah, 39. Because when
So
Jules
many
and
people
Jean
died.
rescue Barbara and Susan, they kill all 3 soldiers.
So many people dead.
So Barbara's like... Lemaitre's like, hey, I think you want to interview this guy. First regional officer. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
And it's Barbara, and Barbara's like, Doctor! And so the doctor is like, alright, Barbara, I'm gonna go talk to the jailer. After 5 minutes, just walk out of this room and walk out of the jail. So the doctor talks to the jailer and says it would be smart to let Barbara leave and then follow her. So the jailer agrees for some reason.
Uh-huh.
So Barbara just leaves. And then later the doctor's like, hey, did you put that trace on... No. The jailer's like, hey, doctor, did you follow that girl? I thought you were going to do that. And he's like, no, what? Why would I? I thought you were going to do that. The jailer's like, oh, dang. I'm going to die. So the doctor's like, hey, we should let Susan go and follow her. The jailer's like, no. Lemaitre finds out I let Susan go, I'll actually be killed because he said to keep her here.
So,
like, okay.
So then the doctor just knocks the jailer out. Was that then, or was that later?
Yeah, that was then.
He just takes this jug that the jailer's been drinking from and just knocks him over the head.
Yeah, that's the second time that happened to him, the jailer.
The first time was when,
Ian escaped.
Yeah.
So, then Lemaitre shows up and is like, with a bunch of soldiers, like, whoa, you're not the regional officer.
The doctor was like,
why are you arguing with me? You should be looking into this jailer. He's been doing some pretty sketchy things around here. And then they're like, oh, okay.
I mean, he has been. So, yeah.
He's been drinking on the job.
Yeah. Um,
So then,
so at that
how
point,
did
Barbara.
Susan get out?
I don't even remember. You're asking me who didn't follow this serial in the slightest. But I remember, like, at that point, Barbara was back at the house with Ian and Jules, Jean,
Right.
whoever it was.
And Barbara's all upset that, like, they killed Leon.
Yeah, and that's
Because
an
there was, like,
interesting...
implied romance between them.
Yeah, just like the implied romance between Barbara and Ganatus, which never was elaborated upon, because they never went back to that planet. But that was an interesting scene that I wanted to talk about, because, like, a lot of the time, I feel like Barbara and Ian were sort of, maybe not foils, but just had a different, had opposing mindsets, where Barbara wanted to do the right thing, which ended up, like, messing up everyone's plans. Whereas
Just like in the Aztecs.
Yeah. Whereas Ian was more willing to do something that might be considered, amoral or just not right, but that furthers, that, stops them from getting killed. And that's...
Well, then again, Ian still thinks the doctor's dead. And he's, like, trying to save his own skin now, because he's actually been kicked out of the TARDIS. He's stuck in French Revolution France, where people are getting guillotined left and right, and he's an Englishman. It's a pretty terrible situation to be in.
That's true. But, I mean, I just thought it was pretty interesting, and looking back at the serial as a whole, I thought that was something that was pretty reoccurring, that Barbara wanted to sort of do the right thing.
Right.
Whereas Ian was more willing.
I mean, Barbara had a pretty good situation. She was in a safe house. No one knew she was there. She was going to live for a while.
I mean, and yeah, I mean, I don't know who I agree with more, actually. But that's something... Tagana, yes, I agree with Tagana more. No, but I think that's actually interesting, and it's something for the viewer to think about. I thought about it.
I didn't.
And I ended up agreeing with Tagana, actually.
I was too busy looking at the doctor's hat. It was a really good hat. I said he should keep it. But, so, Lemaitre was like, alright, I'll make a deal. If you take me to the safe house, because, like, at that point the doctor's been there. Well, the doctor doesn't know where it is, but Susan tells him.
Yeah.
So Lemaire's like, alright, if you take me to the safe house, I'll let Susan go. So he's like, oh, okay, fine. And that's when episode 5 ends. They show up at the safe house and they're like, the doctor's betrayed us.
And then we go back to live action, and like the first couple seconds of the live action episode, I was just like, yes, thank you. The animation is done. Yep.
So he's like, no. Lemaitre, he came alone. And then Lemaitre's like, oh yeah, I'm James Sterling.
By the way, guys.
I'm James Sterling. That's why, all the sketchy things that could have been happening to you guys didn't, because, I'm on your side. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Ian gives them the message. And
Did you see that coming?
No,
I didn't really.
M. Night Shyamalan with a plot twist.
Shamalama.
Shamalama lama ding dong. But then, like, Lemaitre, you think he's a good guy, but then he's like, no, I need you guys to do one more thing for me before I let Susan go. He decides to send Ian and Barbara undercover.
That was an interesting part, actually.
To this meeting of supposedly who's going to be the next ruler of France when they overthrow Robespierre.
Uh-huh.
So, like, Ian and Barbara are undercover. And
there's, like, that whole scene where they're in this inn, and...
Just why? just...
So, but then,
It's Napoleon.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
It's Napoleon.
It's Napoleon talking to some guy. Spoiler.
Was he not talking to Lemaitre?
No, he was talking to someone else.
Okay.
Because that's why Lemaitre couldn't go in, because he would have been recognized.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they sent Ian and Barbara.
You see, they're in the room, and there's just a scene where they're talking, and then you see Ian and Barbara listening in at the door. I thought that was pretty funny, personally.
It was.
So then
they talk about they're gonna arrest Robespierre the next day, and Lemaitre wants to save Robespierre because that'll give him like enough prestige to be able to go back to England, which he already has enough, but he wants to save Robespierre anyway. And they get there.
But they don't.
The Doctor and Lemaitre go, and they're too late. The soldiers are already there.
Yeah.
fighting Robespierre.
And Robespierre gets shot,
He shoots himself,
not killed.
actually.
Oh, he does?
Historically, he shot him. He tried to commit suicide.
Uh-huh.
Tried to pull a Hitler.
Okay, yeah, that's why he was shot.
Tried to be Hitler before Hitler.
Yeah, I guess that's why he was shot in the head.
jaw.
But yeah, you don't actually see that on screen. So,
Yeah, it was off screen.
Because
You just hear the gunshot.
yeah, so I actually didn't know that he tried to kill himself. I thought it was one of the soldiers.
Now that I tell, I was looking right now to see where he got imprisoned.
So yeah, he gets arrested, assumedly taken to the conciergerie prison.
This description.
Or not assumedly,
The
he actually
following
was.
day, Jules and Ian speed off to stop Robespierre imprisonment, an act which Barbara finds amusing because she knows history cannot be changed. So the doctor... Oh, no, it wasn't the doctor and
Yeah, it was Ian.
yeah, it was
and
Ian.
Jules.
Because the doctor went to the prison because he was gonna
yeah.
be like, yo, Lamette was a traitor. You should give me Susan because it was sketch.
And that's when you
works.
see Robespierre at the prison.
Right, so Robespierre gets brought in, the doctor and Susan like make a quick and hasty escape.
They all reunite, and they leave.
The doctor threatens the jailer by saying he could be tried as a whatchamacallit, friend of Robespierre's.
Right.
He's like, no, I'll do whatever you say. The
and
doctor
this-
somehow still has power.
It
And then
was
they
the
go to
hat.
the
It was the
TARDIS.
hat.
It was the hat. It was definitely the hat. So,
They get back to the TARDIS.
well, like, was Lamette or Jules was like, I get the feeling they don't actually know where they're going. But then again, who does? And then they go to the TARDIS and there's this motivational scene. It's like, our lives were important.
And this serial and this season ends with that shot of space zooming in, and the credits rolling over space. And
This is the first time the credits haven't rolled over a black screen, I think.
yeah,
Which is interesting, I guess.
yeah, I feel like, I mean, obviously before the show started, they didn't know if it was going to be popular, right? So they didn't know if it
Right.
was going to get greenlit for more seasons. Which, spoiler, it gets greenlit for like 30 more seasons. But
Spoiler.
but
We wouldn't be here if it wasn't.
we might if we just found some random obscure show. No.
Some obscure one-season show. And this would be the final episode of our podcast. In an alternate universe, that happened.
But I feel like, you know, so they didn't know if it was going to be popular or not. So they were going to end it on this note with that speech and stuff.
I have the speech open. I
You
was
do?
looking at it the other day.
Let's read the entire thing.
Well, first they were like, Barbara, you know, Napoleon wouldn't have believed us if we said he was going to be ruler.
Yeah.
And then the doctor's like, well, our lives are important, at least to us, but as we see, so we learn. And then Ian, and what are we going to see and learn next, Doctor? Doctor, well, unlike the old adagio, my boy, our destiny's in the stars, so let's go and search for it.
And
The end.
And yeah, I feel like that's how they were going to end the series if it didn't get renewed.
Yeah, it was a pretty good ending.
Yeah, I actually liked it. I feel like if it didn't get renewed, that would have been a pretty satisfying thing to end the series with.
Although it still leaves the question, is the Doctor going to kick Ian and Barbara off? Because at the beginning of the serial, he did.
Well, we do know that he gets new companions in season 2.
Eventually.
And I really like Barbara, Ian, and Susan, so I would be pretty disappointed if the first thing that happens in the next season is them getting kicked off.
Kick them off.
I would actually be really disappointed if that happens. I want to see a better way of them.
I definitely
them
think
leaving.
Susan gets kicked off before Ian and Barbara. So I
Oh,
think it's
really?
just the Doctor, Ian, and Barbara for some time.
Well, you
without
know,
Susan.
that's a little bit saddening because, you know, it's been those four for the entire time. But at the same time,
Right.
if anyone were to get kicked off, I would want it to be Susan.
If you had also
because-
at the beginning of this, if you'd also at the beginning of the podcast who we would want kicked off first, we'd say Barbara.
Yeah, because Barbara wasn't doing anything, and now Susan's not doing anything.
Susan's
Yes.
just there as a plot device.
Yeah, Susan hasn't done anything, honestly, since Marco Polo. Real well, since Sensorites, she did.
Yeah,
a little.
she did stuff in Sensorites.
Okay, but in this serial, really, she just kind of.
She got sick and just.
Yeah.
So last week we were saying, continuing the trend, we were assuming that Ian was going to go on vacation this time. And we thought he didn't, because he was in all the episodes. Then we found out that he actually did.
Right.
And they pre-recorded all the sequences he was in.
Yeah.
For the episodes he was on
Pretty
vacation
interesting.
for. So everyone took a vacation during season 1.
Yeah.
And season 1 was so long, we also assumed there was no break between season 1 and season 2. Which there actually was. It was about a month-long break.
Yeah, September 64 to October 64. And so now, do you want to do a little season 1 sort of recap or just thoughts and
Why not?
stuff on season 1?
What did we learn during season 1? We met the Doctor.
Yes, we met the very first Doctor.
A crotchety old man who has grown to become a grandfatherly figure. I feel like introducing Susan as his granddaughter was leading into the fact that the Doctor takes on like this fatherly role for Ian and Barbara. I mean, he completely breaks that at the end of Sensorite. For the purpose of this, let's just disregard that entire scene.
Okay.
Because it's completely out of character. But I feel like the Doctor's become kind of like a fatherly like a grandfatherly figure for Ian and Barbara.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Season 1 was about the growth of the Doctor.
Yeah,
Really.
like at the beginning, he was kind of just a cranky old guy who didn't really want anything to do with anyone else. And by the end, he's made like 2 new friends and gone on adventures with them, and
Yeah,
tried to kick them off.
Really like the first Doctor now.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to disregard that scene where he breaks character. I don't know why that's in there. It's a terrible scene. I'm hoping they keep Ian and Barbara around for like a while still.
To be honest,
I want to see where they go with that.
Yeah, to be honest, at the end of Sensorites, it would have made a lot more sense if Barbara and Ian were just like, you know what, Doctor, we've had a lot of fun adventures, but we just want to go home now. And that's why they ended up
that would have been better.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the grandfatherly role that he's taken on could sort of explain that scene in that, like if you have a son or daughter and they like go against you, you get like really upset.
Yeah, you get disappointed.
Like, at that point, the Doctor had become like so invested in them. He was kind of disappointed that like Ian was still doubting.
But it was just a joke.
Yeah, that's true. But
yeah, I guess if you look at it that way, it makes a little bit more sense. But
I mean,
Doctor,
it still doesn't
come
explain
on.
why the scene is there. If I'm gonna say there's like a least favorite scene for season 1, it's gonna be that scene where the Doctor just breaks character.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that. And if you're gonna have a favorite scene, it's got to be that one where the Doctor walks away from the camera
with electronic music.
Yeah. But yeah, let's look at
Ian and Barbara.
Yeah, Ian, I guess, was my favorite character throughout this serial just because of the stuff he did and how he helped everyone, and he was just an all-around likable guy. But at the same time, I felt he didn't really change at all. Not that that's a bad thing, because he started out being a pretty great guy who did stuff and wasn't useless and advanced the plot.
Barbara.
And then he ended up being the exact same thing.
The exact same thing.
So, yeah, Ian was probably... I don't know, actually. I'm having a tough time deciding between Ian and Barbara as favorite character.
You actually are considering Barbara as your favorite character.
I liked how she
grew from
a
nobody to a doer.
Yes. I liked that about her. But yeah, Ian is your favorite character, I guess.
Ian or the Doctor?
Ian or the Doctor.
I enjoyed the Doctor's growth. Ian's still my favorite companion, though.
Yeah, Ian.
I'm currently on the 11th Doctor with Clara Oswald. I've only seen 2 episodes of her.
That's why I'm going to be sad to see these companions leave, because I feel like I've gotten attached to them already.
We're always going to be sad. When we get to the end of the first Doctor, we're going to be sad to see this guy go.
But I don't think I'm going to be as sad when the rest of the companions or the rest of the Doctors leave, because they're not going to be the first companion / Doctor that I got attached to.
You always remember your first. I was so depressed when the 10th Doctor died.
Or
Donna Noble, first companion.
Okay.
Donna Noble has a terrible way to go out of the show.
All right.
I'm not going to spoil it, but the way they rid her out was really bad, like for the character.
Oh, all right. We'll get to that someday.
A long time from now.
Yes.
Susan.
Well, did you like Barbara overall, would you say? Because I did. In the beginning, I kind of didn't, but she started doing stuff, and she started having some interesting characterization, I thought.
Right.
As we were talking
Not
about
my
before.
favorite, but she's okay.
Susan,
Still don't like Tagana. Just gonna throw that out there.
well, the reason I like him is because he's so evil and so hateable that he's just a great villain.
We'll talk about that. Susan.
So it's not like I'd want to be friends with him. Like, hey, Tagana, sup?
Okay.
I'd probably get
Susan did the
Susan-
opposite of what Barbara did.
Yes, she
Like
did.
Barbara stole all of Susan's doings stuff.
And I remember at the beginning, in the first episode of our podcast, we were like, Susan and Barbara could have been combined into one character.
Right, and they definitely could have. Even looking back now.
They would have had to change some plot aspects because Susan was used as a plot device a lot.
Being the granddaughter of the doctor.
Right, but I feel like they could have still done it. They could have still created good, interesting serials that wouldn't have been too different from what they actually are had they written Barbara and Susan into one character.
It's like every time Barbara started doing things, Susan stopped.
Yeah.
It could have just been one character. I mean, I guess some of the scenes would have to be rewritten, like when Barbara and Susan met John in the Sensorites.
But Barbara and Susan, I think, would
The
together.
Aztecs would have had to be completely rewritten. Because part of that was Susan going to this school.
Yeah. But if you think about it, Barbara and Susan were together a lot. Like in the most recent serial, in the beginning of Sensorites, they were together. And
Gotta
when they were
stick with your own gender, I guess.
okay.
Well, like if you notice, the Ian and the Doctor stick together a lot too.
The Ian,
The Ian. He's a Time Lord now. The Ian.
they do, and that's why. And as we were saying before, when Barbara's doing stuff, Susan's not, and vice versa.
Right.
So that even adds to the fact that they could have been written into one even more.
Right. The fact that they're never on screen apart from each other except like the Aztecs is the only time.
They're never really doing separate things at any given time. Yeah, I felt Susan's personality was also developed less than the other characters.
I feel like the reason she stopped doing things is because they're probably leading into writing her out.
Yeah.
I feel like they probably realized that Susan and Barbara were becoming such similar characters that they could just get rid of one of them. But they didn't want to get rid of Barbara because of Barbara and Ian's relationship.
Yeah, getting rid of Barbara and not Ian, or Ian and not Barbara, would have been a little bit strange, I guess.
I'm hoping they have a good way for Susan to go out and they just don't go, oh, we're just going to leave you here.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not obviously we have different views on Barbara, Ian, and Susan.
Right.
But I think we can both agree that, I don't want any of them to get written out badly.
Right.
Because whether or not you like them, I've personally grown pretty attached to them as characters, so
When they
stop
leave.
laughing. He's laughing at me.
No, I had the same feeling with the 10th Doctor and Donna.
Okay.
I was so attached to the 10th Doctor, and it was so sad when it was time for him to go. What added to it was the 10th Doctor's regeneration was so sad.
Uh-huh.
The universe will sing you to sleep. That was an actual line about his regeneration.
And the first to second regeneration is missing, so...
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Well, they have, like, a clip of the actual regeneration because a part of that was used on a different show. So they have, like, a segment of the actual regeneration.
BBC reused footage. Good job.
No, because it's, like, a show called Blue Peter, which has a long-running association with Doctor Who because it's, like, a variety show, but a lot of their episodes are related to Doctor Who.
Huh, that's pretty interesting.
So they use...
How are they related?
They do a lot of things together. Like,
There was that documentary about the making of Doctor Who. That actually
Adventure
looks
in
really
Space and
interesting.
Time. It came out just recently, actually, for the 50th anniversary.
Wait, is it just about season 1, or is it...
It's about, like, the start. William Hartnell.
Do you want to watch that and record an episode about it? We probably shouldn't be discussing this right now, but...
We could do it this week since we just finished season 1, and that would be a good time to watch it, actually.
Yeah, it would.
This week. I mean,
So,
if
yeah,
you want to. I mean,
I
it
do.
looks really interesting.
Yeah,
I
it
actually want
does.
to watch it.
Yeah.
So we'll do that this week.
Yeah, next week we'll
And
watch
then-
that, actually.
Yeah.
And then jump into season 2.
Yeah, we'll jump into season 2 the week after.
It might spoil some stuff about Susan, Ian, and Barbara getting written off, actually.
Maybe. But I feel like since we already know they're going to be written out at some point in season 2.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I mean-
let's go ahead and do that, actually.
Is this... No, here. It's a British children's television program.
Huh. I see a nice pirate ship.
It's like a magazine entertainment show. So that's where
4,000 plus episodes.
Let's watch them. No, let's not.
No, it's like a variety show. I'm not watching 4,000 episodes of a variety show.
So that's why they have the actual regeneration of the First Doctor, because that specific scene was used in Luke Leader.
Yeah, now an adventure in space and time. Yeah, they got an actor to play the William Hartnell, who looks really surprisingly like William Hartnell.
Yeah, according to the synopsis, is about like the filming. It starts with him filming his lost scene, and then it just goes into like how the show was created, why the show was created. First episode, and then it goes to the end where they record the regeneration.
Yeah.
Then he sees Matt Smith, who will play the same role nearly 50 years later. Yeah, I'm surprised they got like an actor who looks so much like the First Doctor for that, because, I mean, if you don't mind me just... It's not really a spoiler, but they did a special called The Five Doctors when they got to the Fifth Doctor, and by that time William Hartnell had died, so they got a different actor to play the First Doctor who doesn't look like him at all. Let's talk about enemies. Who's your favorite enemy?
Tagana.
Didn't even
Obviously.
saw that coming.
Obviously,
Saw that coming.
I've been talking about Tagana since he appeared,
Right.
and I just think he was the best because he was the worst. He was just the worst person out of all the enemies, and that's why he was the best enemy.
Fair
The
enough.
Daleks are really popular. They were pretty evil, but I didn't feel they were very menacing because of
Right.
the reason why they felt pretty menacing, I guess, to the Four was because they kind of just walked into the wrong place at the wrong time as usual.
It's like the theme for this season was
Yeah.
them being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yep. But I mean, due to their immobility and
Right.
they're not really that powerful. Yeah. That's why I
You didn't
thought
like the Daleks?
I know I did like them because they were robots.
The best enemy was the old woman. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
The best enemy was the
Robespierre.
city administrator whose plans failed miserably. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that they did a Reign of Terror serial with Robespierre, not Robespierre, however you pronounce it.
Robespierre.
Robespierre not being that major of a character. Because
Right.
it was more like, it wasn't really about the Reign of Terror so much as it was a story like
Everyone just getting trapped in...
yeah, but it was set on the background of the Reign of Terror, but it was its own individual thing, which
Right.
I was pretty surprised at, but at the same time I kind of liked, because I mean, if you're just going to retread history and retread old ground, then it's not going to be that entertaining. But if you take a new spin on it,
Right, and
know.
that's why they obviously eventually just faded that out, the historical serials, like purely historical ones.
well, they still do them, don't they?
They do ones based on history, but not like purely historical. Like, what I mean by purely historical, like the Reign of Terror and the Aztecs, the entire plot of the serial is just them doing the things that were involved in that time. When you look at like recent ones like Let's Kill Hitler, there was another one, Fires of Pompeii, it's not like they're doing the things that were there. They're there for some reason other than the history.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's probably going to be pretty good when we get there. Yeah, pretty looking forward to that because, yeah,
why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Yes.
Oh, I wanted to mention, I felt like the Reign of Terror was also a good topic for the end of the season because it kind of like bookended the entire season. Because if you remember in the very first episode, Susan borrows a book from Barbara about the French Revolution.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting they should end up in the French Revolution at the end of the season. So I felt like that was a good choice. And it made the season its own like self-contained story.
Yeah, like for anyone, if you're watching along with us or have been watching or want to watch, the first season as a standalone thing, if you're not willing to put the time into watching 700 plus episodes, I feel like you could just watch the first season and have it be a complete experience.
Yeah. If you have like a weekend to kill and you just want a good self-contained Doctor development story, season 1.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you can do that with any of the other Doctors because I feel like they would lead into the next one and so on.
By that point, they probably just assume that you know everything you need to know.
Yeah. Well, you could start with the reboot.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anything else you want to say about season 1 or the serial?
Oh, I noticed the music a lot in this serial.
Because the electronic music.
Not just that, but it sounded very.
Yeah, because they kept reusing the theme of the French national anthem.
Yeah.
The do 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 do.
Yeah.
Which is also at the beginning of the Beatles. All You Need Is Love. Why is it at the beginning of that?
Because the Beatles, they're just weird. We're just weird.
Tloxel.
Tloxel.
Still don't know how to say that. Looking at the Wikipedia wiki page for season 1. Stories considered for this season but ultimately unmade include The Masters of Luxor, The Hidden Planet, The Red Fort, Farewell Great Macedon, The Minuscules.
Dinosaurs. It's interesting. I really hope they do something with dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs on a spaceship. That's an actual episode.
Oh, yes.
And that's an actual line. The story was never produced. It was gonna be about something.
I really like dinosaurs.
Oh, Farewell Great Macedon was about Ian Barber Susan encountering Alexander the Great in Babylon.
Oh. Isn't a Macedon also a dinosaur?
I think that's a mastodon.
Ah, that's what it was. No, I really like dinosaurs, but if they do a dinosaur episode, I feel like they should, like the historical episodes, take a different spin on it.
Right.
Because dinosaurs don't make good villains.
Right, like Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, the dinosaurs weren't the main villain. They were just
were just on the spaceship.
Right.
Hey guys, we're
dinosaurs.
Here. Masters of Luxor.
Would have aired instead of the Daleks.
Also known as the robots. Yeah. So,
I think that about wraps this up. The death count is at 38.
39.
39?
Yep, 39 people died in this serial. Do you want to read them off?
In this season, you mean? You just said 39 people died in this serial.
Yes, in this season. I meant no, in this season.
So season 1's total death count was 39. Should we read them off? Is that list accurate? That list has a lot of names that we crossed out and fixed later.
It's accurate, but it's not in order because of the old woman.
Right.
Let's go to the one on the site.
Yeah, if you guys didn't notice, we put the death count up on the website a couple weeks ago.
Yes, let's read them off. On the site, we have Cal and the old woman, but that should be the other way around. We should probably fix that. Okay. If we're going in order. But yes.
Live editing. We're editing this as we record the podcast.
Okay.
The old woman. And Cal. Cal. Alright.
Yes.
Old woman Cal. And then?
Then we have Timosis, Random Thal, Antidus, and then 2 more Random Thals.
And the entire Dalek race.
But they come back multiple times.
Which we'll actually see 2 serials from now.
Yes.
The Dalek Invasion of Earth.
3 weeks from now, because we're watching the thing.
Yeah.
None
in the Edge of Destruction.
Some Mongols. Mongol
Random
guard.
Mongol guard.
Akamat. Quiju was killed on accident.
Only accidental death, I think.
Was he?
Well, we'll see when we get down the list.
Yeah.
Ping Cho's future husband, the Vizier.
That was accidental.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Tagana. The Keys of Madness.
Arbitan.
Morpho 1, 2, 3, 4. Darius, Knight, Vassar, Eprin, Iden, Vord, Yartek. Unspecified amount of Vords. First victim, Guard, Ixta. Perfect victim. Second Elder.
And then this serial we have, we spelled it wrong on this. Yeah, Rouvray. I think it was R-E.
R-E-Y?
No, just R-E.
No, I'm pretty sure it's Y.
Okay. Well, we'll look it up. Then Darjinson.
Darjins.
Which I probably spelled wrong on our actual sheet. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, it was like that.
Okay, Rouvray. Darjinson. Should be capitalized. Oop. Darjinson.
3 soldiers. 3 unlucky
1.
soldiers who got in the line of fire.
Soldier 2.
And then 2, we just wrote Guy. Guy 1, Guy 2.
They probably had names, but oh well.
No, those are the ones who died during the escape scene, I think. And then Leon. There's an accent over the E, if you want to include that, but we don't have to.
How do you... Oh.
Yes. Guess we did it. And now on to season 2.
What is the first serial of season 2 that we're not
It
watching
is
this week? But
Planet of the Giants. Sounds interesting.
Planet of the Giants. So, we didn't get any emails this week.
But
so that's
hopefully
sad.
we'll get some this next upcoming week.
Yeah, if you have any questions about season 1 as a whole, since we just officially finished that this week.
Or if you want to put your own 2 cents in onto season 1 and challenge or agree with anything we said about it, go ahead and email us.
The doctor at decorativevegetable.com.
Yes.
Tell your friends about our podcast because we've not been very aggressively advertising this.
Yes.
We have 8 subscribers, I think, last time I checked.
Force your friends to watch our podcast.
Against their will.
Tell them you will disown them if they don't listen to our podcast. No, don't do that. You'll probably just lose friends.
Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell your enemies.
Tell random people on the street that you don't know and will never meet again.
There was something else I wanted to say. I don't remember what it was now. Something about season 1 as a whole.
Was it, oh God, rats! Rats in the cell! Oh God! No, it probably wasn't.
No. Definitely wasn't. Yeah. Oh well. Probably wasn't important. Most of the things we say on this show aren't important.
Yes.
We ramble a lot.
Yes, we do. But next week we will be watching
An Adventure in Space and Time, which just came out recently and is about the first
Came
Doctor.
out about 5 months ago, I think, November 2013.
21st of November in
2013.
UK and 22nd in America.
Yeah, so that's going to be pretty interesting. Might have a different take on next week's podcast because of that. But
We'll summarize the documentary.
Yeah.
Talk about season 1 some more, I guess.
Yep.
In relation to this documentary.
But till then, the end.